Put the nostalgia goggles back on, kiddies. It's time for another dip into the pool. On the first episode of our PlayStation 20th anniversary, we delved into games that gave us fond memories. Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, Parappa the Rapper, and Resident Evil, just to name a few. But given the PlayStation's immense catalog of games, we've just scratched the surface. More nostalgia awaits. What games will we call up this time? Find out on part 2 of our 20th anniversary celebration of the PlayStation, right here on Downloadable Content. Hello everyone, welcome to Downloadable Content. I am Brian, and with me we have Ron.
Hey everyone.
We have Tanya.
Hello.
And we have Dejah.
Hi.
Hi. just a deadpan. Hi.
Well, I did one of these once, but it became a lost episode, so...
It did. It vanished into the ether. Although I think you've been on other episodes before, though.
No,
This
I
is.
so.
I think Dejah was on the previous one of the part 1.
Nope. I wanted to be.
Nope,
Oh.
she wasn't.
That worked.
I think Dejah is replacing Shanna,
Okay.
because Shanna was on the first of the PlayStation episodes, but she's currently on honeymoon at the moment. She
Yeah,
just
if only if I was a Black Beauty like her. But I am not. I'm a boring white lady.
Aww.
Yes.
Alright, Ebert, or what's the donkey's name from Winnie the Pooh?
Eeyore.
Eeyore.
Yes. Indeed. Actually, Dejah, I think this is your second official episode. So.
Yeah, which is why the lost episode, the lost levels.
Yes. All right. Okay. Your first and only other credit was on one of the Final
It's the
Fantasy.
girls in gaming.
Yeah.
Oh no! Yeah. Okay, yeah. I was in for Final Fantasy 9,
Yes.
and then I ran away
No, you
because
didn't.
I had to go to work.
Yes, but you got an official credit for that episode.
Okay,
So.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, it's all right. It was 2 years ago. You're forgiven. So welcome back.
Oh yay!
Welcome back. I was informed by your other half that you love the PlayStation, and so here you are.
Well, it was my first console, so if I'm going to be nostalgic, it's going to be about that.
Absolutely. And so before we dive into the chat, just want to remind everybody that all episodes of Downloadable Content can be found on iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, and you can get a hold of us in a variety of ways. Facebook.com/DLContent, on Twitter at DLContent, on Tumblr, dlcpodcast.tumblr.com, and of course you can always email us with any questions, comments, suggestions, whatever, dlcontent1@gmail.com. So all of the different ways to get downloadable content into your ears. And with that said, let us dive right in. So yeah, in part 1, flashback. We talked about, we brought up a lot of games. I mean, I mentioned in the intro, we had Spyro, we had Crash, Resident Evil, Parappa the Rapper. We also talked about Gran Turismo, Legacy of Kain, Legend of Dragoon, Wild Arms, Alundra, Saga Frontier, Castlevania. So the list continues, because again, we haven't brought up a lot of the big, heavy hitters thus far, and so what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing as we did in part 1. We're going to go around bringing up a game each, and talking about the game from there. And so I'm going to give Dejah the floor first, because you said this was your very first console. So I'm gonna yield the floor to you. Pick a game.
Okay, so this is great because it gives me my chance to pick the one that, when Ron said that, my Ron said that you'd already talked about Crash, I was a little salty because that was a favorite platformer of mine. But one of my favorite games of all time, even to today, my email address still refers back to this game, is Oddworld Abe's Odyssey. I love everything about this series, and I know there's rumors that it might be coming back, and I won't believe it until I see it, but 1997, Abe stole my heart, and I adore that game. I don't know if anyone else remembers it, but it was great.
I remember playing a demo of it, and I thought it was okay, but it was like one of those weird games that I couldn't get into at the time. Because it was like a platformer, puzzle, miss sort of thing, and that just didn't really click for me at the time.
I wonder what level you ended up playing, because there was one level, the third one, that there wasn't really any... I mean, I don't know if I want to say combat, because you didn't really... you could throw rocks, and you could throw meat, so it was kind of puzzle-based, but...
The one I remember playing, there was an enemy, there was a couple enemies in there, and they basically one-shot you.
Oh yeah,
but, if you could dodge them, then you either dodge them or drop a rock or a boiler on them or something like that.
The thing about that game was that everything was a one-shot, and at first I hated that. My dad actually, because when my parents got the PlayStation for the family, they got 4 games, and that was one of them. The other 3 aren't really noteworthy, but I was terrified of this game at first because, and even today I'm not a very good gamer, but I always hated action games of any kind because I hate dying. That's why I always went to RPGs, because it was harder to die generally. But my dad played it, and I loved to watch him play it, and he kind of pressured me into playing it. So eventually I just kind of learned the patterns and everything.
Yeah.
So it's puzzle in the sense of here's a screen, and okay, I can't just roll off this platform and run past the sligs with the guns, because they're going to turn around and they're going to shoot me in the face.
Yes.
And I'm going to turn into a little pile of green or whatever you did. But I don't know, something about the way it looked, or the whole sort of savior of your species story, and it's the little guy versus the corporations. I just loved everything about that. And then later the sort of sequel, because they had this whole idea where they were going to do this quintology, and it never quite panned out, but they did a sequel to Abe called Abe's Exodus, which kind of played the same. It was just longer, and there was more to it. Also, it was a series with a sick sense of humor, and I like that.
Yeah, I remember that too. It had this very weird, artistic style to it, and everything was all grungy, sort of steampunk looking almost.
There was a fart button.
Yeah, there was a fart button. You really just did nothing but fart.
And I was 12, so this was amazing to me.
I can press a button to fart.
You jumped, you farted, you grabbed on the ledges, and that was about it.
Because the big sort of quote secret in the game, it wasn't really a secret, but you weren't told in the manual how to do it. So the first level was really hard, actually, without knowing that you could press down the... I think it was either the R1 and RL. It was any combination of the R or L buttons would get him to chant. And if you held it long enough, you could possess a slig, and then you could go and shoot the other guys in the face. Or you could, talk to the slugs and get them to go kill stuff.
Dirty work for you, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I wanted to mention it just because I kind of feel like, especially since they haven't made a new one in a long time, although I think think on Steam they did an HD one or something, so I think you can still get it.
Just looking at the information here is that a remake of this game, it's called Oddworld New and Tasty. It is available on the PS4 on the PlayStation Network. Release date.
It needs support.
Yeah.
If I had a PlayStation 4, I would.
Other release dates for PS3, PC, Mac, Linux, and the Vita are going to be announced later, but it is out. It is out on the PS4. So,
I told you like a year ago or something that when I visited you sometime, I was going to bring it and force you to play it.
I like platforming games. They drive me mad sometimes, but I like it. I think the last platformer I played was Gianna Sisters Twisted Dreams, and I nearly broke my computer in anger several times. It was just... But I do enjoy platformers.
Oh, and one last thing about the game, and then we can move on, because this podcast doesn't need to be 3 hours like the last one. Yeah, I kept coming in, you're still going on? What? They had a 2-player mode, but I don't think it was really a 2-player mode, and it was stupid. It was the sort of 2-player mode that when player 1 died, it went to player 2. And then when player 2 died, it went back to player 1.
Misery mode?
So it's not like in a Mario or something where, okay, we can work together, which the first time I clicked, 2 players, I thought that that's what it was going to be. And then it was just like, okay, why even bother? Just pass the controller back and forth. Like, why even bother? I think it was stupid.
But yes, you have told me about this game, and it's, this was I did not play this game when it came out, so I've been told that this game is required playing. So
I think it became kind of a cult thing.
That's all right.
It was pretty popular, but if I ever ask anybody now, they just kind of look at me like, I don't know what that is.
It's like Eternal Darkness. critically acclaimed Up and Down that no one's heard of. So, yeah. Which is fine. Alrighty then. Let us spin the table round to Tanya.
Well, I just want to say that about her game just real quick is that I've never played it, but it was really interesting hearing about it. So thank you for kind of introducing that to me.
Hope you go play it.
I might have to now. Thank you, because I like platformers too. But anyway, I guess the first game really on my list is Xenogears.
There you didn't want this to go for 3 hours. Here we go.
At least it's only PlayStation 1.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. PS1. PS1 only.
So Xenogears, for those people who don't know, or living under a rock, Xenogears is by many is hailed as a masterpiece of an RPG. For many reasons, which I've pretty much just succinct put it down to just basic stuff, but it's really hard to do it justice in just a few sentences. But basically, Xenogears, to me, in my own experience, when I played it for the first time, the first thing that really jumped out at me, obviously, was the fact that you saw 2D sprites with a 3D lush, at that time, it was a lush world environment. I like the art style. To this day, I always love the PS1 graphics. I don't know why, I just do. They resonate within me.
I'm a sucker for them too.
It's just something about them, They're gritty, but they're good, But I remember playing Xenogears, and I remember, when for instance, as an example, when I first saw Luca in the first village there in Lahan. And I saw that, it was Luca, and I talked with her, and it was Luca. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what is Chrono Trigger doing in Xenogears? I don't understand. And I remember saying to myself, okay, I'm in for something special. And then when I got into my first combat, I saw how different it was, that you have combos you can do, that you have death blows that that make you do more damage or elemental damage, and you have your ether, which is like your magic, and it's just I was so sucked in within the first 5 minutes. I was so sucked in, but not just because of the gameplay itself, which is fantastic, but the opening scene where you're seeing the ship and you see what's going on with the weapon that they're carrying on it and so forth, and it just, I love that cinematic. To this day, I can watch the cinematic, and even though it's in low res and everything, I can watch it and be like, that's an anime cutscene. All right, I like that. That's cool. But for me, the things that really stood out for me, which is and obviously it's a cliche, story RPG, but this one is different. This one's got a lot of religious and philosophical leanings on their story.
Oh yes.
It's very, very deep. It gets not just religious and philosophical, but and
theological and
theological,
moral quandaries too.
Moral quandary and obviously mental. A lot of mental issues. Like main character. Faye. Spoiler alert for a 20-year-old game. But
again, statute of limitations I think have expired.
Right.
For
Faye
some of these.
being id.
Eris dies.
Having multiple personalities. You don't see that in games. Period. Even to this day, I've yet to play a game where the main character, had multiple personalities but didn't know it. And you didn't know it, really knew it. You might have an inkling, but you didn't know it until a certain point. That's the only game I played that was like that. It's the only game I played that had such religious and theological imagery, and how it pulled from different religions, and how at one point I thought it was anti-religion. I went in, like, when you go to the ethos, and the ethos to me was Square's, connotation on the church, of how corrupt it is and so forth. And I remember thinking about all this. And then, of course, you get to Solaris and you hear about the M plan, and you hear about, and then, you get to that point, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, when you see what Faye and Ellie ate. And you see that it was it was the Soylent system, and I wanted to barf. I did. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, I had a physical reaction when I saw my characters knew what it was, and that they were eating people, pretty much. Wells, but still people. I was just like, I was floored, just floored. And I'll never forget that experience. It is a unforgettable game. Graphics are, for that time, were amazing. And for what I hear, it was supposed to be Final Fantasy VII, but they dropped it because it was too dark.
I don't blame them for that. I mean, I have tried several times to beat Xenogears, and I keep starting it, and I keep getting, a big chunk of the way through it, and it's a very, very heavy game. There is so much reading in that game.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so heavy on philosophy and psychology. And it's like, my God, this is like homework.
But, I will say it had its issues. I mean, soundtrack is second to none.
Oh, that's a Mitsuda soundtrack.
Second to none. Yeah, it's amazing. It's breathtaking in some areas. I just love the soundtrack. Graphics, again, awesome. But there are some areas that bring it down, and I just have really just one word and one number. Disc 2. Disc 2. If it wasn't for Disc 2, it would be, in my mind, a true masterpiece. It's not because of Disc 2. Because they were working on, I think, Final Fantasy VIII or some other project and they couldn't divert enough funding or just enough time to really do what they wanted to do with Disc 2 of Xenogears, so they worked on a far less superior game in Final Fantasy VIII, because I can't stand Final Fantasy VIII. But anyway, that's beside the point.
I played Xenogears, but I think I was 16, I think, at the time, and I think because it was so heavy on reading, I was kind of like, my eyes just kind of glossed over, and I was like, yeah, okay. So like, I don't remember a lot about it, but you bringing up Disc 2, I think it was like really short. Like, I think I switched, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have, another 20 hours or something, and then a couple hours later, I think I got to the boss.
Yeah.
So that was confusing to me at the time.
Oh, yeah, it was confusing to me too. I mean, I remember getting to Disc 2, and all it was a cutscene, one long 6-7 hour cutscene, pretty much, where you're just
they were getting ready
people...
for Xenosaga.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, it was Xenosaga who kept that trend going.
Right. Oh god, Xenosaga, that's a whole nother deal. But I remember just sitting there reading, watching my people, these characters in chairs in some sort of weird environment, just telling you what's going on. And only once in a while you get to go into a dungeon, and then you're back to that cutscene again. And that's all it was for Disc 2, until you got to the very end, and then you were able to do some exploration. But, they really dropped the ball with Disc 2. And it still, upsets me to this day, because I know had they had the time, the energy, and the money, they could have done perfect stuff with it. It could have came out amazing, but it's got that blotch, for what it is. So yeah, it is what it is. But I'm still hopeful. Possibly Square might go back and be like, yo, or maybe even team up with it's not Hudson Soft. Who has the rights now to Xeno series? I forget now. Gods. It went back. The rights went back and forth for a while there.
Is it Monolith?
I think it's Monolith Soft that has the rights now. Yeah.
Pretty sure it's Monolith, because they're the ones that did Xenoblade and are doing the Xenoblade X, whatever the heck it is.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe Square will team up on Monolith one of these days, and they'll actually go back and remake Xenogears, and I can be a happy person. But
but until then, Tanya will be a sad, miserable wretch, wandering this universe, going, why? Why?
I'm a sad panda.
Why?
The one thing I did take out of the game, though, because, like I said, my 16-year-old brain apparently did not pick up on all of the story stuff, or I just didn't care, I don't know. But combat in giant mechas was pretty sweet.
Yes. Yes, combat
So
in the
that's
mechs.
what I took out of it. Punching people in the face with giant mechas.
It was happy. It's happy.
I mean, and obviously we see the influence of Xenogears in Xenosaga. I mean, Saitan is basically Jin.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that Ellie and Shion are the same. And, there's definitely a lot of the idea of the Zohar. It does, there is definitely a lot of influences there. So maybe I'll finish the game. Who knows? I mean, it's a ton of reading, but
When you get to Disc 2, just tell me, and I'll help you through. Trying not to gouge your eyes out while reading all of it.
Fair enough. All right. We shift to Ron.
Alrighty. Okay, I'm bringing this game up, and I'm going to be relying on you guys for this, because me personally, I've only played maybe 10 minutes of this game, but I know I'm pretty sure other people in the podcast have played it, so I'm going to rely on you guys to help fill in the gaps for me. Metal Gear Solid.
I never played it, but my dad did, and he practically had a heart attack every time he played it.
Metal Gear Solid, one of the games that, quite frankly, sold the PlayStation.
Yeah.
There are a couple of games that I personally feel, and it's probably generally agreed upon, that were purely console movers.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy VII is one of them. Metal Gear Solid is definitely another. Tactical espionage action. I had never played a game like this before. I mean, obviously it is related to the Metal Gear games of the NES era.
Mm-hmm.
But
there was no real indication that they were connected, unless you were a real big fan of the series to begin with.
Yes. So, I mean, the game is a stealth-driven, story-driven, Hideo Kojima, he loves to fuck with you.
Yeah.
Oh my god, does he love to fuck with you. And it starts off innocently enough. You are infiltrating a base in Alaska.
Yeah.
Snake has been pulled out of retirement.
We need you, Snake, to do one last job.
If you need it, Starbomb's song, "The Simple Plot of Metal Gear Solid," gives a nice description of everything that happens in there. You listen to it sometime.
Metal Gear Solid, I mean, again, you look at it now, in Metal Gear Solid, you can laugh at it because of its blocky graphics.
Mm-hmm. Rather cumbersome gameplay, I remember.
Yes, and the guards are morons. The AI is just absolutely laughable.
See, you think that, but then when I was playing it, for like the little demo that I did for like all of 5 minutes, where I see a guard patrolling by, and I go, okay, well, I'm going to hide underneath this box here so he can't see me. He walks by, waits a second, looks down, sees footprints, and then starts calling for other guards to come by and look in the area. I'm like, wait, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't you dare! Don't you dare!
That's the kind of thing my dad dealt with. Like, he would be hiding, in the shadows. He could barely see himself, and the guards would be like looking straight at him. What's that? Yo, get over here! Like,
yeah,
very, very frustrated.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could see the sight cone that they had in the map, and sometimes, like, I'll share a moment of stupidity. If you snuck up on a guard really quietly and really slowly, this is what I would do for shits. I'd walk up to behind one, and I would plant C4 on the guard.
And then walk away.
And then I would slowly walk away and wait for the programming made it so that guard met up with other guards.
Yeah. and then hit the detonate button.
Yeah. It would set the alarm off,
but
I didn't...
Yeah, 99 seconds. Then 99 seconds later you go, okay, well, it's almost fully clear.
Well, the thing is, that timer in the upper corner sped up or slowed down with, if the area was clear, that timer would go away instantly.
Yeah.
Just you go right from alert to evasion, and that was that. But very, very plot-driven, and the bosses in that game.
Yeah.
Every boss has a unique power, but probably forget Liquid Snake.
For a moment.
Forget Liquid Snake for a moment. Fun fact, he was voiced by Cam Clark. Psycho Mantis.
That is the most unfair thing ever. How are you supposed to know?
Those are where this guy is presenting himself as a psychic and like a telekinetic person, and he's gonna like read people's minds and fuck with you and things like that. You think it's all gimmicks and bullshit. Well, you fight him, and like one of the first things he does is he unplugs your controller.
No. He doesn't unplug your controller. The first thing he does, during the dialogue in the lead up to the battle, he reads your memory card.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you like other Konami Okay, Metal Gear... the entire Metal Gear Solid series is known for breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Always. Mm-hmm. So he starts reading off your save file. Like, oh, you like Castlevania. But the thing that got me was the fact that, yes, during the boss battle, it appeared that he could basically read your every move.
Yeah.
Also, the screen would sometimes go blank and flash the word Hideo.
Okay, wait.
Game over.
That Hideo, that was in the GameCube remake, The Twin Snakes. But either way, in the Twin Snakes or the regular PlayStation version, the way you beat Psycho Mantis is the same. You're like, well, you're crap. How do I defeat him? He basically reads every move. So here's the gimmick. You put your control. You unplug your controller.
Unplug player 1. Plug in player 2. And now you can't read your moves anymore, but you can still play Solid Snake because that's how they programmed the game.
I think my dad had to look that up online. Like so much stomping and swearing and yelling happened. My poor mom.
Wow,
Yeah.
really? So it actually forces you to take out the controller.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
No, it doesn't necessarily. Well, I mean, okay, if you have the patience and enough rations, you can. You can do the death by 1,000 cuts method if you kept it in
I would
play.
say, isn't it possible to eventually kill him by riposting his riposte?
Yeah, you can. Like I said, you can keep your controller in player 1 because idiot me, when I played the remake on GameCube, I completely forgot about that. So I'm like, how the fuck do I beat this? It was so much easier on the PlayStation. How did I? And so I just, you can do the death by 1,000 cuts method. It's a real endurance test, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way you would quickly beat him is you plug your controller into player 2.
That's too funny.
So, but it's shit like that you wouldn't think of that the Metal Gear Solid, series is known for. Especially this game. And in this game you also had, the very memorable characters. Revolver Ocelot, who would become pretty much the antagonist for the series.
What's the girl's name? I forget her name. The sniper?
Sniper Wolf.
Yeah.
Okay, it is Sniper Wolf. Okay, and then you have Gray Fox.
You have Gray Fox. You have Otacon, the scientist Hal, who you meet him by way of him pissing himself in a locker.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the Colonel's niece, Meryl, who is introduced to you by way of an ass jiggle.
Classic.
Yeah.
I remember with Sniper Wolf, even today I go, okay, so they're in Alaska, right? And there's snow all over the ground, and she's a sniper, so she's probably going to be lying down with her gun. How is she not getting frostbite on her boobs?
And why are they almost hanging out to begin with?
Yeah, they're like half at, which that's fine if that's what she wants to do, but weather-wise, it does not make sense. It's like plate mail bikinis in World of Warcraft. I was gonna stab my midriff. Come on.
Who else? Vulcan Raven. And you had some of and of course that game has 2 endings. Metal Gear Solid 1 has 2 endings, depending on
there's a good ending and a bad ending.
Depending on if you survive the torture scene or you submit.
I don't think I knew that.
There is a torture scene. Revolver Ocelot gets you, and he administers shock therapy, and you have to mash all of the buttons
To not die, basically.
Yeah, to not die.
That's crazy.
If memory serves, the bad ending is Sniper Wolf dies, good ending, she lives?
Meryl dies.
Oh, Meryl dies, okay.
Sniper Wolf is going to die automatically. That's a boss battle. However, and this is just the beginning of a long trend with Otacon, he has horrible luck with women.
This is true.
They all end up dead. There are 3 women that he falls in love with, and they all die over the course of the entire series. So he's just the sad sack. Again, Liquid Snake, voiced by Cam Clark, very prominent voice actor. And just overall, the codec conversations.
Yep.
Which, you find out what really is going on, because of course it's government. They're never going to tell you any.
Yeah, it's government conspiracies and Illuminati bullshit.
Which you get more of in Metal Gear Solid 2, but
and 4 and a little bit in 3.
And how about 3? I mean, it's all of them.
This is true, but 1, I know 2 and 4 are really bad for it.
Oh yes.
When will you learn, Snake?
And other little things like to find because each person in your codec you speak to on a certain frequency. Like, one of them, will tell you, look on the back of the game box.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, cool. But an incredibly story-driven game, very, again, very heavy on the stealth. You can go in guns a-blazing.
It's real hard to live, though.
Yeah.
I know that much. I tried doing the guns a-blazing in the demo. I think it was a demo that actually came out with the PS1 that I had, or maybe in the PS Magazine, the official PlayStation Magazine. They had a demo for Metal Gear Solid. I tried doing guns a-blazing. I shot one guard, and with my pistol, and I get to half health, and he pulls out his AK-47 and 3-shots me.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I'm like, okay, let's screw the combat and let's try to do the stealth portion here.
The pinnacle moment in that game, though, it's not the final boss battle with Liquid Snake. It's the battle with Metal Gear Rex.
Mm-hmm.
You versus this giant walking tank. Have fun.
Where are those Xenogears when you need them?
Right?
Yeah, I need a mech. I need a mech myself. Can I get one?
No, it's you, this tiny, squishable, fleshly human, taking on a giant walking mech that's armed with a rail cannon and nuclear warheads. Enjoy!
And by the way, your one ally that had any decent chance against it just got smushed about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, have fun. Bye-bye.
Jeez. That's crazy.
So, yeah, this game definitely gives you a lot of feels. A lot of feels. So, I could go on about it, but we do have other games to get to.
All right,
It
well,
was
what do you
definitely
think,
a
Brian?
huge deal when it came out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what's
game
your
of the year
game, then?
stuff.
Oh, sure, let's move on to me. Okay, so we've brought up some stuff. Let me add. Okay, Metal Gear Solid is added. Okay, so I opened with survival horror in the last episode. I'm going to open with survival horror this episode.
Second verse, same as the first, a little bit louder, a little bit worse.
Yes, we very, very briefly, Shanna mentioned this in the first episode, but we spent no time on it, so I'm going to give it the time it deserves now. Parasite Eve.
Mm-hmm.
I never actually beat that
Nice.
one.
Parasite 1 and 2, they were both on the PlayStation. Parasite Eve, I think, was Square's answer to the survival horror craze that was Resident Evil.
Your Resident Evils and your Silent Hills.
Yeah.
Which actually we should probably talk about soon, too.
Yeah, Silent Hill will be mentioned. But Parasite Eve was basically a survival horror RPG.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was a very interesting take on the genre. A little bit of genre blending there. You got your survival horror, and you've got your RPG elements in as well. Now, this was based on the book Parasite Eve.
Yeah. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, Brian.
You're
because I
wrong.
did not play it. But the storyline is, it takes place to Christmas or
Yes.
New Year's Eve?
Christmas.
Christmas in 1998?
Something like that.
1999, somewhere around there. And
97.
97, and some sort of biohazard outbreak happens in New York City.
It is New York City.
And you are called in to combat it / stop it
You're
from
at the opera. or
doing
something
whatever.
Like because I remember you're in your evening gown.
You're like a red dress or something like that.
Yeah.
Black slinky dress with your gun. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, the game opens. You are playing as the character of Aya Brea. You are working as a rookie for the NYPD. You are attending an opera with a date who does not get named. However, during the performance, everybody except Aya spontaneously combusts.
Literally or figuratively?
Literally.
Literally.
Okay.
Everyone ignites.
Okay. That's one way to ruin the mood.
Now,
Yeah.
I don't completely remember the specifics of it, but like their mitochondria become like hyperactive or something, and that's what creates the heat?
The mitochondria. Now you have to really know your 10th grade bio for this game.
Yeah, we're talking video game science here, so
Yeah, like
put logic on hold.
yeah, no. I mean, this game uses like actual science.
Yeah, it was pretty good at,
The mitochondria reached an advanced stage of evolution, and that is the reason why Aya does not spontaneously combust as well, because she shares the same sort of genetic link.
Right.
So, because this involves science, we have a scientist who, tries to explain what's going on, and the game takes place over the span of 6 days.
It goes from Christmas to New Year's Eve, then.
Yep. And, basically, the game explains that the mitochondria are in basically a race for survival, and the being that is known as Eve is trying to create the ultimate being. So, Eve needs sperm. And Eve gets it in a hospital.
Which I guess makes sense, actually.
Again, it does. Let's see. Casualties. Let's see. The Statue of Liberty gets destroyed.
That's New York City. That's perfect, of course, and for any demolition survival horror game.
And the ultimate being that gets born. It's a 3-form final boss. It starts off as a giant baby.
Delightful.
A giant screaming baby, which is very easy. Then once you beat that, the actual battle begins.
With a badass boss theme.
It was. The composer for Parasite Eve, first game, was Yoko Shimomura. So, that name rings a bell. That's because she composed, she would compose later, Kingdom Hearts. She had done Street Fighter II and Super Mario RPG by this point. But excellent final boss music. It's one of my favorite final boss themes. When you beat the game, you basically unlock a new game plus. Amazing. And gives you an extra area to explore. It gives you basically what amounts to a long endurance test. You have to go through the Chrysler Building. And it is there where you find the, quote, true final boss.
Who's a bitch?
Maya. It's Aya's sister.
What a bitch.
Oh, she's hard. She is hard. And, the RPG elements come into play. You can level up. It uses, guess what? That wonderful active time bar.
But you can move around while you're fighting and stuff.
Yes, you're not stationary. And Parasite Eve, the RPG elements get toned in the second game. The elements get toned down a little bit. The second game I didn't like as much as the first. The second game is, weird, to say the least. And
I won't ask you about the third one. Because I know your feelings on that.
I haven't played the third game. And
that's okay.
I have.
You
don't want to.
I have it. But
you don't want it. It is. Yeah.
But I would actually strongly suggest that if you want to play Parasite Eve, read the novel first, because the first game is a sequel to the novel.
Is it easy to get a hold of?
Yeah, I got it on Amazon. It's translated. It's been translated into English, so yeah, you can get it.
I might do that sometime.
Yeah.
Because I never actually beat the game, because I remember I was in a boss fight with Eve on a horse carriage or something, and I ran out of bullets. So I was in a boss fight, ran out of bullets. What am I going to do? Start the game over, I guess? I didn't feel like it at the time.
It's like, I don't feel like it, so there.
Wasn't it also a movie, Brian?
It was a live-action movie, yes.
I don't think it did very well.
It was made in Japan. It was made in Japan. It wasn't here.
Oh,
so.
okay.
Huh. Okay.
So, it's another one of those "Oh Japan" moments. So that is Parasite Eve, and let me just check the time here. Yeah, we can go one more round from everybody before we cut to break. So back to Dejah.
Back to me. Oh, let's see, what do I want to do? Alright, so I'll do the other game that even today was still really special to me. I'm going to go with... So, it was a port from Saturn, I believe, but I think it got more attention on the PlayStation than it did on the Saturn. Lunar Silver Star Story.
I've never played it.
Really?
Amazing game.
Okay, good. Yay, you know about it. So, so the first RPG I technically played was Final Fantasy VII because I went to the Blockbuster and I rented it for 5 days. Back when that was the thing. But the first one that I bought, I saved my $60, which was actually technically expensive at the time because I don't think there were a lot of 61s. But you got a map, a cloth map, and you got a music CD and a how to make CD, and you got all these. It came in a pretty box. It was awesome.
I'm so
It was
jealous.
the first one I bought, and I completed, and I cried, and I still love it. And it was just, the dragons and fighting for your like it was kind of old school, but I didn't quite get that because it was the first I had played completely, so I had dystopian Final Fantasy experience and then this awesome thing where we're just going on adventures, and I loved it. And you have an ocarina? Take that, Zelda.
Right?
So there.
It's turn-based combat. But it's done in a different way. I mean, you want to get into the combat there?
Right, you pick out what everyone's gonna do, and then you basically hit like, okay, go, and then it does the turn. So you kind of have to, like, you can't really, like, oh crap, I just got hit and I need to heal right now. Like, well, you gotta wait until you gotta hope that he doesn't kill you by the time you get to it. Although with boss battles and stuff, once you kind of learned what like their 3 moves were, you kind of predict, because like with spoiler, Galleon's the bad guy. When you get to him at the end, if he does one attack, his second attack will be the same. So you just kind of have to, hope that the next one. I guess there's strategy in that. I'm so eloquent with my words. But yeah, I haven't played a game that did it that way.
Did you find it overtly difficult? Because it is a difficult game. It's not easy.
I didn't. Well, I'm a notorious. Not as much anymore, but when I was in high school, I was a notorious grinder. Because I've never really been great at combat, even RPG combat. So I would want to be really, really strong. Although the fun thing about that game is that only works so well because the bosses level with you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like, well, my strength is 50 and my HP is 500, they'll be like, well, that's great because I'm the same percentage as if you had been half that, like, or I'm the same ratio to you. But there was one time, years later, where I was trying to almost do like a speed game, and I learned that that's a bad idea because if you're not quite high enough to have ice magic when you're stuck in the fire dragon temple, you're not going to survive. Or at least I didn't.
I didn't either.
I didn't have the ice skills at the time. So I didn't necessarily find it super difficult, but you can't totally just run through it and go, yeah, all right, let's just keep going, and I'm just going to get with the bosses, because you have to sort of hit certain...
There is a bit of, like, grind or DPS check of some kind.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, either. It was just, kind of a little disheartening, especially after the Black Dragon scene where you meet the Black Dragon and one of the party members gets kidnapped.
Shit hits the fan.
Yep.
It is an awesome cutscene, though. They have some great anime cutscenes for that.
That was a big thing that attracted to me at the time. I mean, I still enjoy anime now, although I was much, wackier about it at the time. But the fact that there were fully animated anime-style cutscenes was a big deal to me. And the opening theme and the boat song are very pretty.
Yep.
And normally I don't say that about weird American translated themes. They're usually kind of crappy. But those ones were done really well.
Have you ever played the remake on PSP, Silver Star Harmony?
I don't own a PSP. But my Ron, not that Ron, keeps wanting to get a used one. So if we ever do get a used one, I'll probably end up getting it.
I do have it, the Silver Star Harmony. I want to say the animations are still there. They kind of, I don't want to say dumbed down anything. I think polished it mostly. The graphics, like some of the edging, some of the sprites.
I mean, they increased the size and detail of the sprites.
Yeah.
For the most part, but and they did polish up a lot of the general graphics, but the voice acting took a dive. Unfortunately,
Yeah, a lot. That was a big
They
hit.
did the whole thing, or
Yeah,
just
it's the entire
the
thing.
voice acting. That's another thing. The voice acting was really good.
Yeah, it
And
was
I don't
really
think
good.
there was a lot of voice acting at the time, and a lot of it, if you did have a game with voice acting, it came off really cheesy.
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't right.
What? How dare you? Like, people don't say that. But in that game, they did, even with the sort of, okay, we're going to come into a cutscene where someone's talking to you, and then there's kind of that awkward pause as it ends where they're like waiting for your response. It still didn't feel like as awkward as it could have. Like, I don't know if they just had everybody in a studio at the same time, like, because a lot of good voice acting, sometimes that's how it'll be, so they can work off of each other.
Yeah.
Or if they just got people who knew what they were doing. I don't know, but the voice acting was excellent for 1998.
But I will tell you though that the PSP version has a couple of goodies. A couple of goodies. The soundtrack has been remastered, and I gotta say it is much better.
It got a little bit of a facelift, and it does help.
And in the very beginning, actually, there's an extra whole new scene added that wasn't in the original, and it's actually kind of like a prequel, you know. And it's
I remember
of Dine, you know, and you actually get to fight a battle as Dine and his friends and everything. So it's actually kind of cool. You might, and like I said, if you do get a used PSP, you should definitely check it out.
I probably will. And one quick thing, and then we can move on. So I had bought that one, but when Eternal Blue came out, the second one, I didn't have the money to buy it, and I went, well, that's okay, I can buy it later, forgetting that it was like a special, like they were both kind of special edition sort of things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out, of course, years later, that it's pretty expensive to buy.
What's the price on it? Like $300, I think?
$400 right now.
I want to say I spent maybe $120. I actually managed to find one.
Wow. That
still came with it. I think it was still in the box. I mean, the box was a little, crinkly. It's not like it was, but. And I probably wouldn't be able to tell you where the box was at the moment, but I do own it, and I started it, but I didn't really have the time. Like, it's kind of hard to invest time in an RPG nowadays. Mm-hmm. So I ended up falling out of it, but I still own it, so I can play it whenever, and I'm gonna.
And she's gonna play the hell out of it, damn it!
Because those games just make me warm and fuzzy inside.
For king and country.
And there's so many games that kind of, I don't know, sort of make you feel sad at the end for whatever reason, but only good, warm, fuzzy feelings after playing those.
Alrighty. Tanya, another from you.
Final Fantasy Tactics.
Alright. Alright. You know, I'm trying to. I was gonna say. You started with Final Fantasy, and I'm like, if you said 7, 8, or 9, I'm gonna be like, save that for the second half. But
That'd be easier if we just say go listen to what we did when we did the DS version.
yeah. If you want in-depth discussion of Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, go back to season 3. But we have not. We did. Well, you can talk about Final Fantasy Tactics. I know that was another console mover. So
Yeah.
have at it, my dear.
Well, Final Fantasy Tactics. Where to begin? When I first saw it, and I saw it on the shelf, and I saw it was a tactical RPG. I went, what? Because Final Fantasy Tactical? What are you talking about? I looked at the back and I saw the graphics, and they were 2D isometric, and I'm going, I've never seen this before. What is this? I don't know.
Tactical RPG, Final Fantasy, solid.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Because I had never before then. I had never played a tactical RPG before. Final Fantasy Tactics was my intro. And I remember I brought it home, put it into my PlayStation. I couldn't wait. I'm like, yes. Cutscene. As soon as I hit new game, the cutscene starts, and oh my goddess, I was blown away by what I was seeing. I was like, what is this? I don't even.
And suddenly Tanya needed happy Kleenex.
I did. I seriously. I was. By the time the intro cutscene ended, and not just the FMV, but the actual cutscene with Ophelia and them at the Orban monastery there, and all of that, and then I was thrust into my first battle automatically, and I'm playing just as Ramza, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is fun. And I remember walking around trying to get used to the controls, and I'm like, okay, this does this. Everything had a purpose. It was the first thing I found out. Like the buttons, all the buttons on my controller were actually being used for the first time. I was like, okay, this does the camera. Okay, this rotates it. All right. Oh, I get to look up and down.
Zoom in,
okay.
zoom out.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, I get to zoom out. Okay, that's cool. Oh, and this does. All right, cool. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I'm learning, And I think I remember before then you had to put in your birthday, and mine's October 24th. I'm Scorpio. Hi. And I remember putting in my birthday, and I was like, okay, I don't know what that was for. And then I saw that whatever birthday you put in your astrological sign is what your character has. And I was like, that is so cool. And I think, and I know that if whatever you put in there, it alters your beginning abilities there in the very first battle there. And I had guts. That was my squire ability thing there. And I remember I had accumulate, and I kept on hitting that for like the first 2 rounds. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting my attack up. This is awesome. I'm gonna go after somebody. And I remember striking somebody for the very first time, and I'm like, yes, I did 48 damage. I am a goddess. And I was just like, yeah, it's amazing. But really, honestly, what I want to really get into seriously is the story. And the story is unfreaking believable. It is mature. It is dark. It is not something that you can be like, oh, this is like a Final Fantasy 2 or a Final Fantasy 4 or or even like a Final Fantasy 5 where you're gonna go against the bad guy and No. Big fat sack and no.
There's many bad things happen. You're trying very hard to not have this case scenario happen.
It is. I wouldn't be able to do justice again to all the cutscenes because that's what you need to do in order to really do it justice. But I will just give a very light topping here with it. It's basically, you're thrust into this as basically a young recruit type thing of a larger knight royalty type hierarchy, and basically as you go along and you start fighting more battles and you start going after the Death Corps, which are your initial mission basically is to defeat the Death Corps. And
Oh, fuck. This is painful.
yeah, and then you get to the end of the first chapter. He knows where I'm going with this. You get to the end of the first chapter, and you're at the final battle in the end of the first chapter. You're like, all right, this is painful, but I'm gonna get through it because you have knights after you, and you're like, oh shit, and you got these people with you got these wizards on their side, and they're throwing fire spells and lightning spells at you, and you're like, damn it, I'm gonna die, and you only have, for me, you only have 2 people left in your team, and they have only got the boss there, which is, I believe his name is Algus, and he's throwing, he's throwing crossbow bolts at you, and you're like, fuck you, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and you win, and you're like, I did it. What happens next? Cutscene that I will never forget for the rest of my life. Freaking asshole Algus shoots an innocent young woman, I believe her name is Tita, I think, Dejah's sister, shoots her, kills her, and my heart was torn. My heart was freaking torn apart. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I remember actually sitting there going, are you fucking serious?
Oh, wait, it gets better. Don't forget that Zelius runs in after him to kill him because he was injured. About 5 seconds later, the entire complex goes up in smoke and explosions.
And you're like, did they just kill Dejah and Tita in the same minute? Are you out of your mind? And then, of course, you get the next cutscene, and then it brings you to the beginning the beginning battle, the very first battle, because that took place later on. So it's like you went back in time for the first chapter, and then you caught up with yourself.
Prologue, basically.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. So and you start the second chapter, and you start unraveling certain aspects of the plot. Like you start finding out that it's not just simply these 2 factions are gonna go to war with each other. No, it's not that at all. It's that there's someone pulling the strings, and you have the church involved with it. Church is heavily involved with it, and they're pulling strings. They have their own agenda, and you're like, oh man, it's getting deep. Political intrigue to the max, and you're like, all right, I am getting invested in this story. And basically, by the time you hit, I say about the late 3rd chapter, you find out that who you're really going for are these are the Brave Knights, and these are people, special people that were chosen a long time ago in the ancient times to save Ivalice from ruin. And there's some new ones that were supposedly chosen, and they have these Zodiac stones. And you think at first, because you don't know, that the Zodiac stones are supposed to be good. Nope. No, they turn these Brave Knights into freaking demons of hell, and they're powerful. Oh my God, they're powerful. All I'm gonna say is one word: Velius. Is all I'm gonna say about that battle.
No, that'll happen.
There's it ends up being too that the Brave Knights were actually people that picked up the stones and got possessed by the demons, and it took the church, like pretty much their entire army that they had built up at that time, just to get the kill the Brave Knights themselves.
So basically, it's all just basically, when you really put it simply, it's just a scam by the church, and these Brave.
It's a big cover up too.
It's a huge cover up. The church is lying, and Ramza, he's a nobleman, but he's also was a nobleman, but now he's just basically in it for himself. He's not in it for anybody else. He's kind of the 3rd power, so to speak, or actually in the 4th power in this case, but the 4th power in this case to everybody else's internal struggle.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting dichotomy between seeing where Ramza was and where he ends up by the end. You find out that the church, they were never really exposed until literally the last scene in the whole game when you actually find out that they've been exposed. But even then, it's only exposed by a certain scene. It's only one scene where you actually see that they're exposed by a document.
Yeah, because what happens too is that the initial thing you're reading is like this is the true account of
Was it
the
Saint Ajura?
Yeah, the War of the Zodiac, I think is
Yeah.
what they call it.
Yeah.
And the original thought was that what most people know is that they think there was actually only one war that happened called the War of the Lions, which was between the recently crowned king, who was like a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, and the Princess Ophelia, which is like she's semi-related to the crown, not like directly. And like one faction wants to put her on the throne, the other one wants to keep the 5-year-old on the throne, and that's what most of the War of the Lions was about. But the War of the Zodiac is actually what you as Ramsar are doing, in that you are in the middle of all of this war and strife and death going on. You're trying to stop the revival of 12 ancient demons sealed in the Zodiac stones, from them pooling together their resources and power to eventually try and basically blow up Evilise.
Yeah, and they're trying to revive Saint Ajura by the end of it. That's really the kicker, is that throughout the game, you think Saint Ajura is a saint. You think that Saint Ajura is, like our version, I should say like the Christian version of Jesus. But you find out by the end, it's the complete opposite.
Basically the Antichrist.
Yeah, Saint Ajura is the freaking Antichrist. And you get a fighter at the end, and she becomes Ultima, Altima. I think that's what it's Altima. And it's, now mind you, I will say in terms of difficulty, I had no trouble getting through the game, especially when you get TG Sid, because TG Sid is OP to the extreme.
To get the idea for people who have not played the game, previously there are various NPCs in the game that are like that joined your party that had particular abilities. So like you had Agrius, who had Holy Sword abilities. You had one person who had Dark Sword abilities, so like drain life and drain mana, things like that. There's another person that has like, they're like plant abilities almost, I want to say.
It's called I think it's called Geomancy. I think it's yeah.
And Thunder God Sid, who we've heard previously being like, this guy's a badass, and like you don't see him fight really, and then he eventually joins your party due to various machinations of the plot. And as you look at his stats, well, first off, he already wields, is it Excalibur?
Excalibur, yeah.
Yeah, guy comes in wielding Excalibur, knows all the abilities that these previous NPCs has, and by the way, the damage that he does with them is insane. So Agrius has like Holy Judgment, which does like, at that point in time, maybe 170 damage.
I was gonna say like 170, maybe 200 max. Yeah,
yeah, it's 170, 200. Sid throws it down, it's 500.
500.
Just one-shots people left and right. And you're like, well, I guess I'm not having you leave my party ever.
Right? Once you get him, the game's over. Pretty much, the game's over. You've won.
Pretty much it ends up being one of two things. Either your NPC, either the party members are with you are so skilled in their jobs because it's a job class system, and there's a bunch of mix and match, so you can have like I think the main powerful one was dual wield from the ninja. So like you dual wield like 2 weapons, and then you just one-shot people left and right with them.
Pretty much, yeah.
Ends up being either a case of having a bunch of dual wielding people with 1 or 2 healers, or you basically being protect Thunder God Sid and let him one-shot everything.
Pretty much by end game, if you know what you're doing with the job system, which is really awesome. I love the job system in that game. If you know what you're doing, you can put together a team that can't be stopped. It's as simple as that. You can't be stopped, and you're invincible, pretty much.
There's a PSP port that...
Which is better. Yeah.
It's better, yeah. They in the original translation, they turned most of it into actual English, whereas in the PSP port, they actually converted from English into, like, old-time English. So you have a lot more thous and honors spelled with, like, an H-O-N-O-U-R and various things like that.
They're not calling the king dude or bro.
Yeah.
No, it definitely is a translation. The PSP version is definitely loads better.
Yeah. Also, a additional dungeon you can do where basically the game turns into a cheating bastard, and certain combinations and powers that like would not be possible that the computer throws at you. And it's just kind of like a challenge test. So, like for example, I remember one of them's like you fight Ramza, Thunder God Sid, Agrius. I forget the engineer's name.
Oh, Mustadio.
Yeah, Moscatio.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other people, and they all are wielding like Excalibur, or like the best weapon of the game, with like the best armor, and all of them have ribbon. It's just like, what are you doing with these items? I barely have some of these items myself.
Well,
because it follows the Final Fantasy tradition of you had to steal these weapons from. They only show
one
up.
boss, and if you didn't, then you don't get it.
Yeah.
Especially like Genji armor. That was a big thing in FF Tactics.
Ribbon. There's a couple weapons that were really important that didn't show up anywhere else. And it ended up being like a case of like, even if you didn't want the weapons, you kind of stole them anyway, just in case.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is probably one of the greatest games for the PS1 ever made.
It is. It was recommended to me by a friend, and so I decided to give it a shot, and it was at that point that I realized I don't like tactical RPGs.
Yeah, I do not for everyone.
Yeah, I do not like my RPGs to play out like a chess match. So I got through the first battle, and I'm like, you know what? No, not for me.
I tried playing it, and this was back in high school. I mean, maybe I could try it now, and I might not be terrible at it, but it would take me so long to... First off, I think I only got to the fourth battle. I remember the last one. It was like outside a building in a desert, like it almost looked like the Alamo or something, and there was a bunch of black mages, and I couldn't get past that one. But it would take me so long, so many tries to go through a battle, that by the time it got to the next story part, I had no clue what the last story part was.
Yeah. The PSP one does help a lot with that, because like just the fact that the PSP is so portable and that you can save mid-fight, I think.
That'd be helpful. Because then I wouldn't die as much, probably.
I think I know which one she's stopped at. The Dorter Trade City. I think it's where she stopped at.
Yeah, so
I don't know, it was only like third or fourth battle.
Yeah, there's one where like basically like, the first couple of fights you do are kind of like tutorials, and the third fight that you do, and like it's raining, it's like you're kind of slum area, and from a tactical standpoint, you're in like the worst position possible. You're in this like gully, and like you have an archer on top of a building shooting at you with a black mage 5 feet away from the archer throwing fireballs at you. And then you have knights running up the street to ready to chop your head off.
And I'd never be able to get any of my people to level up because I would barely survive with my character at the end and go, well, alright, time to go buy people again so I can have another battle.
Yeah, that's another thing too, is that the fact that death is permanent if you don't revive people, or win the battle within, generally speaking, I think it's like 3 turns at most.
I think it's 3 turns, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. They turn into a crystal.
I would be able to get close to them.
Yeah, so there is permadeath, It's actually kind of reminiscent of a Fire Emblem in that regard, with the permadeath.
And that's why I can never play those games. Just not gonna bother.
I will say, when it comes to FF Tactics, it introduced me to tactical RPGs, and I've been hooked ever since. And now I love games like Tactics Ogre and Let Us Clean Together on the PSP. My favorite on the PSP is that game. But I mean, like, FF Tactics. There's a lot of nods too to Final Fantasy games. I mean, like, you can recruit Cloud into your party. He's playable in the game, and it's not like a hack or a mod. It's part of the game.
Well, now that we've spent what?
That was a long one.
That was a long one.
Yeah, it was.
That was a long one, but that's okay. So we'll do one more from Ron, and then one more from me, and then that's going to be the end of the first half.
Let's see here. I don't really want to do Final Fantasies, or any of the Final Fantasies. I have to look up the name of the game. think it's called Legend of Legaia. I could be wrong in that.
Yeah,
though.
Legend of Gaia.
Legend of
It was like
Legaia,
a fighting game RPG.
Yeah.
I don't have that in my list of mentions. So
I played a demo of it, but I never actually played the game. But Ron owns it, so I should probably check it out time.
I own it and I've beaten it.
Good game.
It was okay. I think it's a little. I think it's missing a little bit of something.
I remember seeing reviews, and that's kind of the way they sort of described it, where they were like, it doesn't quite reach the potential it could have,
Yeah.
but it was trying different things.
Mm-hmm. This was a game that came out in Japan in October 29th, 1998, March 17th, 1999. It was a role-playing game. Who made it by? Created by Contrail. I have no clue what the studio name is. But the general idea is that there are the world is currently in like similar to how Final Fantasy IX has like a mist that makes people go mad. Legend of Legaia has a similar thing going on here, where a deadly poisonous mist has descended upon the land, and there's two races living on it. One called the Siru, which are kind of like your humanoid monster type creatures, and then humans. And the mist drives the Siru mad, and then causes mutations in humans even. So like most people try to avoid it as much as they can. And you are a group of heroes that are trying to through circumstance and coincidence, you all group up together and are trying to figure out why this mist is here, stop the mist from showing up, and eventually it's similar to like some RPG plot save the world. What I remember about this one though was that as you leveled up, instead of it being like an ATB system, active time battle system, you had like a set order that people would go into based upon their speed and things like that. But when you want to do attacks, instead of it being like an attack or like a physical attack or a spell, you actually enter in like a combo system similar to like a fighting game, where like you do punch, kick, and if you did certain ones in certain orders, you'd actually execute a like a special move. So like you would do punch, punch, kick, and it'd be it would turn those three attacks into one attack, like a dragon kick or something like that, and it would do more damage than the individual punches themselves. And as the game progresses, like you get, and as the game progresses, you gain more levels, you learn more techniques, things like that. You could eventually get to the point where your bar would get so long, you would end up doing like 3 or 4 combo moves in one like rotation for one character.
It's like if there was an RPG about Tifa.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
With like her limit break.
Yeah. And like you still have your access to like some spells and things like that, but I remember for me specifically, it was I made it unnaturally difficult for myself because I had a friend who had a Game Genie at the time, so I hacked my save to get the special summon that you can get only when because it has summons in the game, and I hacked my save so that everyone was level 99, so I could get the summon, which was cool for all of like 5 minutes, and then you find out that he's actually really weak. Because it's like he's useless against he's pretty much useless against any of the bosses, and you're level 99, even though my character was like level 40-ish. So I had to go through like the last third of the game with like characters with level 40 stats and beat the game somehow. with those like with that limitation set on myself. I did it barely, but it was really hard.
And the end game screen's just, was it worth it?
Yeah, he's like, was it really worth it? And like, I did like the combat system. I really did. I don't really enjoy much. Like, the story I thought was very forgettable. There wasn't really any big surprise in it. The character didn't really like too much either, and the soundtrack was average at best.
I have to agree with that. Yeah.
There were a lot of RPGs on the PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is definitely
So
like
it
one of
kind
those
of got
cases.
lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, where if this was, I mean, like, there was a lot of good RPGs on the PS1, and like, if this one I had the unfortunate thing of coming out at the same time as 7 and 8, and people are expecting like these grand stories with amazing animations and things like that. And like that's probably like, the only thing I could think was decent about it too is that the animations were actually like passable, decent. Like they were better than 7's, that's for sure.
Yeah, because they went the route of the polygon
Yeah.
characters. Because it was sort of a toss-up whether somebody, like, a game was going to have 2D sprites or, like, the chunky Final Fantasy sprite,
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 7 characters, which, I don't know, I love playing the original Final Fantasy. If they ever make a remake, I'm going to be stubborn and not play it, because I like the little giant arms and stuff.
You mean the Lego graphics?
Yeah! Where their waists are, like, ridiculous, and their elbows are barely there.
Alrighty. I will suggest one last game before we cut to break. Now for me, the PlayStation 1 was, for me, mostly known for RPGs and survival horror, but occasionally I did like to play the occasional silly, not serious game at all. That's Twisted Metal.
Yeah.
Specifically the third one, because that was the only one I played, and basically it was just a demolition derby.
Yep.
And Sweet Tooth horrified me.
Sweet Tooth, I forget the character name. It was a car that, each one had a special move, and the point of the game was that at each level, you had to be the last car standing.
Mm-hmm. Because the whole plot of the game is that everyone is competing in this race because they all have some sort of wish they want fulfilled. And supposedly the guy running the race, I think his name is Calypso?
Yes.
Is the one that can, like, grant the wish. Although, obviously, in usual fashion, it's usually like a devil's wish where, like, it's granted but not the way you wanted it.
Yep.
And so you have to... And so other people don't really know that going into the race, so they're trying to compete in it and just get their wish fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. And it's just fun. It's not serious. You get to blow shit up. You get to destroy shit. It's just... And multiplayer was fun, too, because I used to piss off a friend of mine, because I forget the name of the character, but their special move was... basically a lightning bolt that trapped all other cars in range. And it would sap the life bar, and it was great. And I've won many games with that particular character. The bosses were annoying as hell, like Minion, which was essentially a tank. And
Metal Gear when you need it.
And, you could sometimes do dirty pool, you could sometimes, ram into another car, and especially on the final level, and you could knock them off. The final level, you're playing on basically a Zeppelin.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And if you hit somebody hard enough, you could knock them off the side and kill them for a cheap kill. It's not, it's not quite the friendship ruiner as Mario Party, for example. But it was just a fun, mindless game that, it was a pretty successful franchise. I think I never played any of the other ones. It was only the third one that I played. Minion, Calypso... I'm trying to think of some of the other bosses in that game. Because there were a couple of them. And it was like, when I beat it on easy mode, it was like, oh, now play on normal mode to actually see the ending movie. And I'm like, aw.
Time to go all the way back. Let's do it.
I think, aww. Twisted Metal 3. I mean, the box art, I mean, if you're scared of clowns, will freak you right the fuck out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even if you're not afraid of clowns.
But yeah, I'm taking a look. It's the game. It was 8 levels because it was basically you could free roam anywhere on the level. Some of the levels did have board hazards. I know that. I know, like I said, the final level was not it was a blimp, as I mentioned. The first level was it took place in Hollywood, which was devastated by an earthquake, if I remember.
Sounds about right.
I remember Hangar 18 because that was Area 51.
I remember that.
The 5th level is in London because I remember you could destroy Big Ben.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. They actually did have some destructible environments, didn't it?
Uh-huh.
I forgot about that.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it immensely. You know, it kind of got mixed reviews, but I didn't care. It was a pointless, silly, just sit down in front of the TV and just destroy shit. Good way to relieve stress.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and on that note, I think we're going to cut to break here. Because that Final Fantasy Tactics blurb took considerably longer than I was anticipating, but that's okay. That's why we're here. So in the second half, we will continue on with more nostalgia. You'll have some music, and you are listening to the PlayStation 20th Anniversary Retrospective, Part 2. We'll be back.
Fingertips moving gently to my heart. The force of life goes on and on. The song remains like a haunting melody of angel music held in chains. And I ask you, who lost? Can we know the cause of all this sorrow? Can we catch the tears of a broken world falling down upon the earth, falling down? Take me deeper into you. A haze as blue as summer skies, and turn to find the key will not unlock the door. This broken bird, away it flies, and I ask you, can we ease the pain of those who lost? Can we know the cause of all this sorrow? Can we catch the tears of a broken world falling down upon the earth, falling down?
Welcome back to our PlayStation Retrospective, Episode 2. We are all still here. We have not been sucked into the world of blocky graphics and potentially questionable voice acting.
And multiple discs.
And multiple discs. Yes, multiple discs indeed. So we are going to pick up the discussion where we left off. We're going to do a couple more rounds of games from everybody, and we will go back to the top of the round. We will go to Dejah.
Well, alrighty.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop making fun of me. I'm gonna go with now. I one thing there was a lot of games that I never played personally, but I would love to watch my dad play. So I've seen them all. I just haven't physically held a controller while doing it. But I'm going to go with Tomb Raider.
Okay, that is perfectly valid. This is the series of pointy boobs.
Well, they got a little bigger and a little less pointy with each one, but that's a whole other discussion. I was always really fond of this series, and I had to defend it numerous times in my high school years, because whenever, even today, whenever the discussion of women in video games comes up, they love to go to Laura, and part of me would always be like, have you actually played the game, or are you just basing this on seeing pictures or seeing articles that call out the character design? Nowadays, people could just say that they're slut-shaming because they all go to the size of her breasts back then. And at the time, it was just kind of like, see, she wears cut-off shorts and she's large-chested, therefore that's horrible. And I don't know, I think, like, she was smart. She was pretty fearless, at least in the original ones.
Yeah, we're just talking the regular, the PlayStation ones, not the reboot.
Not the PlayStation 2 or anything after that.
She had a fair bit of one-liners, too.
Oh, yeah, she was great at one-liners, especially when she had some guy in the ground and she had a gunplate, facing their face or their balls. She, didn't really care. And she was remarkably athletic, so I kind of saw her as a role model a little bit. I mean, I'm nowhere near anything that she was, but I thought she was a pretty cool... I mean, because they could have done Tomb Raider with a dude.
Yeah, that was with Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and then it would have been... it probably still would have been a good game, but I don't know if we would have been talking about the lead as much that, she's still pretty memorable. The fourth and the fifth game weren't great, so I'm going to forget that those existed.
I'll say, I know she was mostly memorable for her first 2 or 3.
Well, if you look at the first one, she did look like she was a fan of Madonna, circa maybe Truth or Dare or something. Like, she had a very angular breasts, but again, that was like 1996 maybe that I think it came out.
96, yes, November 1996.
Yeah, so that was pretty early PlayStation 1 graphics, so everything was pointy.
Yes.
So, heads were pointy. So, but, I mean, I remember the first one I ever saw my dad play was Tomb Raider 2, which, of course, the running gag with the series is, well, she's not really, raiding tombs anymore, but whatever, it was still awesome. And that one, went all over the world, which I thought was cool. She went to the Great Wall of China, she went to Venice, she went underwater into, this abandoned submarine, sub base or something. Where else did she go? She went to Tibet, and then she ended up back at the Great Wall of China. So I thought it looked awesome, and I always loved watching my dad play that one. And then the first game, I think her name was Natla. The main villain was female too.
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty cool. Although there was a boss in that one that my dad always called torso meat, because that's basically what it was. It was just like this weird giant fleshy, it didn't have skin or something, and it just had giant arms and a torso, and it was horrendous looking. Like it probably belonged in Silent Hill or something. I don't remember any of the other bosses. I just remember torso meat. Because of
Like
my
you sure?
dad.
It's like you're sure you're not talking about Resident Evil 5 Wesker now, are you? It's
No, that's Octopus Man. or Squid Rocket Man.
yeah,
That, I won't even go into that.
meat tornado. But
And then I liked the third one too because that kind of followed the sort of the trend that the second one had, where she went to London, she went to Antarctica, and granted, yeah, okay, she probably wasn't wearing the proper gear for Antarctica, but I'm pretty sure the zipper went all the way up to her neck at least. So Sniper Wolf, take notice.
this, and we mentioned this in the first episode, that the PlayStation 1 as a console, this is where we really start to see games that are cross-genre. They were no longer, in the strict molds of, this is a platformer, this is a shooter, this is a puzzle game, etc. Because if I remember, Tomb Raider was like this mix of, it was like basically a mix. You had some action-adventure, you had some platforming, you had some puzzle solving.
There was a lot of puzzles. Like, I think a lot of people remember it as, she's running around with a revolver, or revolvers, I should say, where you had the unlimited ammo on those ones, just kind of shooting at people. But there was a lot of times where you'd have to set up certain, lever pulls or, like booby trap stuff coming through. So like you said, I mean, it was basically Indiana Jones with a hot female lead, which I don't see anything wrong with that.
Not saying there was anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that's basically what it was.
No, I know. No, I wasn't saying that you thought like, what? No, it should have been a dude. But I don't know.
But very well received. I mean,
that.
it ended up, it spawned the entire franchise that's still running today.
Hell, it has a movie.
Several.
Yeah, they're not that terrible. They're bad, but they're not as bad as the Super Mario. So
no.
The thing about that movie was that it was okay, but it wasn't. I don't know. Like, it wasn't the Tomb Raider I had seen in my head.
Yeah. I mean, Angelina Jolie, I think, played a decent Lara Croft, but...
Better her boobs.
Well, at least the ones that were there at the time.
Let's see. It was funny because as I'm reading the article about it, Tomb Raider got criticism for some object glitches and camera glitches.
It did get glitchier as the games went by. I remember my dad, he would always talk about how glitchy they were and that each one got worse. He barely ever played 5 because it was that glitchy.
And apparently some fans complained about the lack of action because of the emphasis on puzzle solving, which would, ironically, Tomb Raider 2 would be criticized for its overabundance of violence. And I'm like, okay, gamers still don't know what they want, but anyway.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think... I shouldn't say, do we know what we want, because not everybody's going to want the same thing. So the people going, there's too much puzzles, they're going to be vocal if there's too much, if there's a lot of puzzles. But the people who like the puzzles, they're not going to be saying, anything until you take the puzzles out, and then they'll be the ones complaining. Everyone always complains.
Yeah. So, there we go. That is Tomb Raider. We will shift now again back to Tanya.
Well, let's talk about Einhander. Let's.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna. No RPG right now.
That one, because of Final Fantasy. Oh, I'm thinking of Air Guys. I'm sorry. Einhander's a shooter.
Yeah, Einhander's a shooter.
Also
Yeah,
done by
it's
Square, so you're not wrong.
But Einhander, I first played it as a demo. I think it came with either FF7 or FF8 as a demo. I forget which one.
Probably 8.
I think it's probably 8. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out in 1998, so...
Yeah, I think it was probably FF8 then. And I remember playing the demo, and I was blown away by the graphics, by the soundtrack, and I'm not usually into like shooters or shmups. I'm not really usually into them, but this one, very special. So I bought the game, and from what I understand now, it's a pretty rare game. From what I understand now, but I bought the game, and I remember bringing it home, and I played it, and I was just like, I was at the first boss. I remember being at the first boss, and I remember like, it was so huge and so massive, and the camera angles were just amazing, and the graphics were blowing me away. I couldn't believe it, and the music was just crazy. It was all nuts. The gameplay was fast and smooth and slick, and I was like, yeah, this is how you do it. This is how you do a shooter. So, I beat the first boss, and then I get wrecked. I remember getting past the first boss, and I was very happy, and then I got wrecked. Every single time I tried to get further, I got wrecked. My name became Tanya Wrecked Botelho. I couldn't get any further. And then it just kind of dawned on me at that point. I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I'm kind of screwed. This isn't gonna... I love it, love the game, but I suck. So, on occasion I'll go back to it, like, just because I love the game, but, like, I can't get really far in it. It's difficult. It's not easy.
But you are best at level 1.
I had level 1 down to a science, but after that, nope.
Well, that's generally the thing with the shoot 'em up games, that there's always, generally speaking, a pattern to all the attacks they do. It's just learning the pattern for the stage and, like, memorizing it. And it's always a criticism against the shoot 'em ups, generally speaking, because it's not just like difficulty because of a difficult mechanic. It's just difficult because you haven't learned the memorization yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I sat, especially now, because I was a kid, obviously, when I got it, but if I sat down now and really just put balls to the wall, I'm gonna do this, I could probably get past at least level 2 by now, if not get to the 3rd. But it's, for some reason, it just Einhander, which I love the game. It likes to flip me off, and I don't know why. It's just one of those games, like you have one of those games that just, you love it, you love everything about it. It's an amazing game, but like, it just doesn't like you, and you don't know why.
Your description reminds me of the GameCube game Ikaruga.
Yeah, it's very Ikaruga-esque.
Is it a bullet hell game?
I don't think it was
Not that bullet. It wasn't bullet hell per se. It was definitely a shoot 'em up 1942 aerial combat type of thing.
Fair enough.
No, I never played Ikaruga, but yeah, that was kind of my experience with Einhander. And like I said, I mean, I think it's one of the best games on the PlayStation, especially for its very sleek, very sci-fi graphics. It had a lot of sci-fi elements to it. And the music, it is music, but like in the beginning stage, you hear what sounds like opera. Like you hear like I can't even do it, but like, the music is just like, just like, the hell?
like beautiful but kind of ominous.
Yeah.
You think something's gonna happen.
I wasn't prepared for it. It really took me by surprise. It's one of those games that takes you by surprise, and you're like, wow, okay, this is different. And of course, Squaresoft made it, so I'm like, no RPG? Okay, let me try this. And I wasn't disappointed. And as far as I'm aware, that's Square's only shooter property.
I believe so.
Yeah, that they've ever done.
Until
they did amazing.
I think Squares did Tomb Raider, like the update to it.
They did the reboot.
Yeah, they did the reboot. Yeah.
That's like the only other thing that they've got any sort of like gunplay related thing in.
But yeah, Einhander, awesome game, just tough as nails for me.
That game ended up getting re-released in Japan on the PlayStation Network. So
it hasn't seen the light of day over here yet, though, huh?
No.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah,
of course not.
Yeah, no. All right, we will move on. Ron.
All right, we mentioned this earlier. We're going to talk about a proper Silent Hill.
Yay!
Very good. Very good. Because if you weren't going to mention it, I was. So.
Okay, well, let's put this with a brief bit of context. I played it and I beat it. Mind you, I am not the person that plays survival horror games.
That's not your brand.
I generally avoid these games. The only reason why I was played through it was because my sister bought the game. She bought the game. When did it come out?
I want to say 98.
Some years ago.
Yeah, like 1998, 1999. So she was 10 years old.
99.
How'd she get away with that?
This was a mature game, and so she plays through it. And she's like, "This is too creepy for me." Now, mind you, my sister loves scary stuff. She's the one that goes to all the horror movies and screams her head off at them, and like that's her thing. She really enjoys those things. I do not care for them, but she's like, "This is too scary for me. I need you to play through it for me." And so it ended up being that I had to play through the game for her, while she just basically sat there and watched and freaked out.
Yeah, that was kind of like what happened. I had a friend of mine when we were playing Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and anytime Nemesis came on the screen, she threw the controller at me and deal with this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but it was just like the game in and of itself, I actually think is pretty good. Like it's definitely a survival horror thing where you're like, you have a handful of bullets and there's 5 million monsters on the screen. Like, what are you gonna do? But it's just the tone that it's set when like it's this fog-ridden town. Like you can't get out of it for some reason. All the bridges are busted for some reason, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? There's like no one living in the town either.
Well, there's Dahlia.
There's like, okay, one person.
Creepy
You're
old
trying to
lady.
find your daughter because you wrecked right outside of the town, and you think someone from inside the town saved you and brought you inside to get healed up. And the only thing you have on you to begin with is this dinky old radio. Which doesn't even have batteries in it, yet it somehow works.
You find that radio in
the diner.
In the diner, yes.
And like the radio doesn't work only, but it generates static whenever there's enemies nearby.
Yes, that was your cue.
That was your cue to start run like hell and or pull out your gun.
Well, here's the thing. This was Konami's answer to Resident Evil, whereas Resident Evil was all about the shock value of survival horror. This was like get into your head silent horror,
and that's why I loved it so much better than Resident Evil.
Whereas you played as a police officer, a trained combat person in Resident Evil. Harry Mason, your protagonist, he's just a guy.
Yeah, I think his profession is a teacher.
I don't remember
what his job was, but he was just a dad who loved his daughter.
Yeah, and
and the mother was out of the picture for some reason, but we find out later on where the mother was.
Yep, and so not only you're not going to find super high powered weaponry. You're going to find things like a pistol, a knife, a block of wood with nails in it.
Yeah,
lead pipes.
Memory serves, the weapons you get are a lead pipe, 9mm pistol, a 22 gauge shotgun really late in the game.
Yeah,
a hunting rifle really late in the game, and
a laser gun. If you get the alien ending.
Okay, if you get the joke ending.
If you get the joke ending, yes.
If you get the joke ending, yes, but not during the course of play.
Yeah. There's another weapon I'm thinking of.
Like I said, I thought there was like...
There's a revolver, I think?
No, I thought there was like the wood with nails in it.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Because you get melee weapons.
You get like a bat with like a bunch of nails hammered into it or something like that.
Yeah. And with the firearms, this was not a game where this was not a shoot everything.
Look for the bullets. You had to look around for like 2 bullets.
You had to conserve like hell. This was kind of like Resident Evil 1 level of conservation. You could not afford to shoot everything that moved, because if you did, you would have nothing for the final
If
boss.
you missed, you were boned.
Yeah. And
So just run from those ghost dogs and skinless
you
babies.
do. You spend a lot of it trying to avoid combat.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, let's not forget the fact that at random points throughout the game, usually during one of the like dungeons or whatever, the game would go from this creepy like mist-filled
The air
town
raid sirens
to this section of
Right.
hell.
Yes, whenever you heard the siren, it would change from regular everyday Silent Hill
Creepy.
to
Silent Hill.
I'm in a semicircle of hell.
yeah.
With like chains and blood and
Every time you heard that,
Raining everywhere.
every time you heard that siren, you were like, "Oh God!"
not again.
I'm sorry to interrupt, guys. I just got informed that I'm being dragged out to karaoke, so I'm gonna have to get ready real quick and go.
Oh!
So
All right. Okay. Who is stealing you away from me?
that would be the wife and 3 of our friends.
Oh,
So
all right. The wife takes
Okay.
preference. Okay, I understand. I yield.
you yield, okay?
I
all
yield. Fine, Carissa. You can have your precious Tanya back.
right. But it's been a blast. Thank you so much, Brian, and all you guys. Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
You are
Take
very
care.
welcome, and enjoy your bad singing and
Will.
and drunken revelry. Have a good night, Tanya.
All right, thank you very much. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.
See ya.
Bye.
So, back to
What's a
silent.
sad post?
Back. That's all right. But yeah, anytime you heard that siren, it was like, oh God, and because the enemies got tougher in the in the darker realm, and then you find out just the weird, freaky shit that's going on. This isn't like some evil pharmaceutical company trying for global domination with a virus. No, we're dealing with the
Natural stuff.
we're dealing with
Yeah.
the supernatural and the occult and drugs and Dahlia and and Michael Kaufman and the nurse Lisa, who just
Lisa.
and
It was really fucking creepy. Wants to bone you for some reason. You're pretty sure if you bone her, you're gonna wind up dead.
yeah, you know, especially when you reach that scene in the game where suddenly she's just bleeding.
That scene breaks my heart. My dad has to skip it because it makes him cry.
It
My
is
dad never cries.
it is a sad scene, but at the same time, it's like, get me the fuck out of here.
Get me out of here! Where's my shotgun? Let me pull your head off.
Like once she because she has no memory that she's dead. So
Yeah.
like once she, like you read the diary part and you like it clicks for you. That's when she starts bleeding from her eyes and her scalp and just everywhere. And the heartbreaking part to me, one, the music's really, really sad.
Yep.
So that helps too. The score is great, I think. But when she's stumbling forward and she reaches for you because she
It's afraid.
wants to feel something, like as she's dying again, kind of. Like, and then you basically just kind of go, yeah, I'm not playing here, and then you
Yeah.
close the door on her.
I'm
Which
noping the
makes
fuck
sense,
out
it was
of here.
someone
Bye
too,
bye.
but-
Yeah, and then you have then you find out, the whole Alessa Cheryl connection, and oh well, human combustion, great. And the drug White Claudia, and that stupid object, the Flauros, which is this all important plot point.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I played the game, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. The mother's dead because he actually killed her?
That's Silent Hill 2.
2.
Okay, that's 2.
That is 2. You are a jumping game.
Okay, my mistake.
Which is a great story too.
Yeah, but the mother's out of the picture. The daughter is like becoming the vessel for some Cthulhu-esque thing to come through.
Basically, that particular plot point gets resolved in the 3rd game.
Yeah, because that's his daughter in the 3rd one, right? Like,
Yes.
with him? Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That was kind of cool.
That plot
And
point.
then he somehow saves her in the official ending.
Yeah, you.
But the official ending of the first one, I think, like, she's resurrected as a baby, and him and Sybil pick up the baby.
There are
Yeah, 'cause-
there are 4 endings after you have beaten Samael, the god, all depending on 2 particular points in the game.
Point 1 is if you save Sybil or kill her.
Yep.
And then point 2 is if you save the daughter or kill the daughter. Or the sibling, whatever.
The endings are dependent on whether Harry saves Sybil or discovers a bottle of aglafatis, which is a red liquid, and it has the ability to dispel demonic forces.
Alright.
The bad ending occurs if neither is done.
Yeah, he kills Sybil, then kills the daughter, and then kills himself?
No, it's Alessa electrocutes Dahlia, then attacks Harry. Harry defeats her, but then Cheryl thanks Harry for freeing her, and Alessa vanishes. Harry collapses, and the game cuts to his corpse in the crashed car.
Okay.
Bad plus. Sybil's alive. Kaufman is missing. You hear Cheryl's voice. Alessa disappears, and Sybil goes to Harry and tells him to run. Get out of Silent Hill.
Okay.
It's a no-brainer.
That's a no-brainer. The good ending, Sybil is dead, and Kaufman shows up with a bottle of aglafotis, which he then uses to force the deity out of Alessa.
Mm-hmm.
And...
Good plus is save Sybil, save the daughter, basically happy ever after.
Basically, and then the joke ending, which is the aliens.
Which my dad did, not knowing what was going to happen, and then he watched it and he was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Why did I bother?
But one of the things that still to me to this day is very, it's a hallmark of the game, and it's a hallmark of the series. It's the music, because it's not necessarily music, it's ambient noise.
Yeah. Like the static from the radio, the clinking of the chains when you're in the school and the dark school.
The music, the noise really helps to set the mood and really makes you feel fucking uncomfortable.
Yeah. The game is maybe like 8 or 10 hours long, I think.
Less.
It's pretty short, but like the entire time you're like, fuck this, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here.
Yeah,
my dad said that, and sorry for interrupting you, that the scene that freaked him out the most, that like he had to stand up and like walk it off around the living room, was you go, I think it's in the school, you go into a bathroom and you hear a little girl crying. Well, that kind of freaked him out as it was, but then he was opening up stalls and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But he can still hear crying. And that just freaked him the fuck out. He started like, doing that.
Getting the willies, and you're like, yeah, this is definitely, this is hitting an 11 on the fuck out of here, Meaver.
He said he never got that with Resident Evil. Like, I mean, it's got creepy looking nightmare fuel stuff, but it never just made his skin crawl.
As I said, Silent Hill, whereas Resident Evil is more of the shock value, the sudden things that make you scream for a second. Silent Hill is all about environmental horror. Get into your head. And Akira Yamaoka, who does the score, does a beautiful job of that.
Yeah. And the entire series as a whole, I feel, generally this is like what all of them are. It's like a bunch of ambience horror and setting of the horror.
Yeah.
It's not the shock value. It's just like, this shit is creepy, what the fuck is going on here? And like, that's pretty much what the entire game is.
Yeah, and it's weird, but I loved it. I really do. I'm a big fan of the series, so that.
Like I said to you earlier, I'm so sad about Silent Hills.
So we will shift from one survival horror game to another. It is my turn, and then we will do one last one for all of us. We go back from psychological horror to hamtastic survival horror.
Some Resident Evil.
Close. Dino Crisis.
Oh,
Hey!
Close.
Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
Dino Crisis 1 and 2. Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
The main female even kind of looked like Jill.
Yeah, she was Regina. And, it has an interesting premise. You are infiltrating an island, which is a secret scientific government, not necessarily government, but scientific facility in which you find that a doctor who was reported to have died is actually working on something called the third energy.
Oh, great.
Which can be used to travel through time. However, an accident occurred at this facility, and they brought dinosaurs,
Of course.
into the present, and so here you are.
Joe Schmo trying to stop the dinosaurs from coming in and wrecking up our cities.
Dr. Edward Kirk, and you play as Regina, and again, it's you go through, and it's the dinosaurs are, they're not front and center everywhere like zombies were. This is kind of has like a classic Resident Evil vibe where the enemies that do appear you need to get rid of quickly because you don't really have a life meter. The only thing to indicate your health is how fast the background music is playing. The faster the music, the closer to death you are.
I don't think I ever knew that at the time.
Your only indication that you are really near death, the only physical indication is that, like, if you are a hair away from death, your Regina will start limping. But other than that, you can, if you listen to the background music after you get injured, you will notice that it picks up in tempo a bit. And there are some moments in that game that are immensely frustrating. For example, because the game has dinosaurs in it, you have your friend the T-Rex, who occasionally appears, and you have to, the couple of times that he does appear, you have to basically shoot him in the face while he's attempting to lunge for you.
That's not terrifying.
Oh, no, that's not terrifying at all. And the music is screaming at you all the while. And, it's one of those, if you miss, it's an instant death.
Yeah, because you have to shoot the dinosaur in the mouth while his mouth's open.
Yep.
And he's about to bite your head off.
Yep, and you have to do it within a certain, split second, otherwise you're dead.
Yeah.
But you get continues in the game in the form of resuscitation medicine, but if you run out of those, it's game over, and you start at your last save point. The thing I found interesting, though, in terms of gameplay, is that you had the ability to mix items, to create new items. Like, you could mix 2 small med packs to make a medium, or if you found, an anesthetic aid, and you mixed it with a med pack, you could create tranquilizer darts. So you had you had all of your weapons were firearms, but you could not only find, but also make, through various mixing, stronger bullets and anesthetic darts. You could also create poison darts. And the darts would knock you either would need a lot of anesthetic darts to put a dinosaur to sleep, or it would take one dart, but the effect wouldn't last for very long, or it would take one dart, but they would be asleep for a long time. And the poison dart was death, one shot death. And there are several points in the game where you have to make decisions which do affect the ending. But overall, it's a very tense game, and because it involves dinosaurs, in the voice acting, they do make reference to Jurassic Park. But they don't actually say it outright. One of the guys is like, as a T-Rex is coming, it's just like that movie.
Hang on to your butts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dino Crisis 2, much different tone. It's not tense. Now it's much more action adventure shooter as opposed to survival horror. In Dino Crisis 2, what happens is the government comes in and takes this doctor's work from the first game to try, because they want to make weaponry out of it.
Of course.
And guess what? An accident occurs.
And more dinosaurs.
No, what happens is the entire group gets thrown back into the
Like prehistoric
time. Yeah.
Oh, so it's not dinosaurs invading modern times, it's modern times invading the dinosaurs.
Yeah. And in that game, like I said, it's much more action shooter. Like, the dinosaurs come out fast and furious, and they're much easier to kill. I know with each dinosaur you kill, you gain points, which you can, and consecutive kills gain combos, which gives you more points, and the points act as your currency, in which you can buy items like recovery items or ammunition or new weapons.
that just happened to be lying around the prehistoric times.
Well, because this entire military compound got transported back.
Okay, the whole compound.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything is still in place. It's just, hey,
65 million years in the past.
yeah. And I did like that game, not as much as the first though. Regina is still your main character, so she's basically like Leon Kennedy at this point. Like, oh, this again? Really? Fucking really?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I would have been like, you know what? This is the government's fucking fault. You do.
Yeah, I'll say you really want to leave the incompetent buffoons that is the government to solve this problem.
Yep. So, first game I felt much better than the second, although I did enjoy the second. The third game is for Xbox. Forget about it.
I didn't even realize that they had a third one.
There was, and it did horribly. Dinosaurs in Space. I've never played it.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, jeez.
Dinosaurs in Space. I've never played it, and I don't want to. I don't want to.
I need to see that now, though. I don't know.
I'm like, thank you, Capcom, for taking a perfectly good series and shitting all over it.
That's Capcom.
Where do you go from here? Put him in space?
Put him in space. I'm like,
It worked for Jason Voorhees, right?
Alrighty, so that's Dino Crisis for you. Alright, let's do one more from everybody. So back to Dejah.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go with a little platformer. I think you'd call it a platformer. Tomba? Does anyone remember that one?
I've never played it. I've heard of it, though.
Spell it out for me.
Tomba. He was a tiny little pink-haired.
Do you have like a tomahawk or something like that?
He might have, but I always remember jumping on people and biting them and then flinging them away.
Like a prehistoric dude, and he's fighting other prehistoric things.
They're not really. Well, the evil pigs have taken over the area, and you have to catch the pigs in the pig bags.
I've heard of this game, so
apparently, and the only reason I know this is because one of the YouTubers that Ron watches recently did the completionist recently did one on it, and apparently it's kind of a rare game now. But I just remember seeing a review back in PSN back in the day, and I went, "Oh, it looks kind of anime," and yeah, okay. So I picked it up, and it's not a particularly hard game. Actually, it's pretty easy for like your basic. It's kind of like Spyro in that regard, where like just doing basically just everything basic, just fighting the different pigs isn't really that hard. Getting 100%, I was never able to figure out, because you have like a series of like little quest tasks that different villagers and stuff will ask you to do, and you can, by doing some, you open up other ones, etc., etc. And I was never able to complete all of them, and I like kind of refused to look at a strategy guide because I wanted to try to find them all myself. And if I can ever find the game again, because I can't find my copy, which kind of makes me sad. I wanted to play it recently.
it is on PlayStation Network.
I might look into that because we do actually have a PlayStation 3.
It is on PlayStation Network, so.
But it was just, I mean, it was really cute, and the story was kind of ridiculous with these evil pigs showed up and what are we gonna do? The pigs. Like, it was just really cute and really fun. And at least nowadays, and granted, I don't necessarily know as much about games now as I did then, but it sometimes feels like the only time you ever really get something that's just cute and fun is if it's Nintendo, which I love Nintendo. But then you have everybody else complaining about how that's for kids, where it's like, sometimes I just want something that's going to make me smile and not have to have a deep, intriguing story or challenge my senses. Like, sometimes I just want to go, I am entertained and all my stress is melting away because I get to jump on things and bite them with my big teeth and fling them across the screen. And it had a sequel, but I never played that one.
Well, I mean, the developer Whoopee Camp went went out of business shortly after the second game. However, you can find the first game. It is on the PlayStation Network. So
it was just.
So go get it.
I will. Fine.
Fine. Be like that. Alrighty then, Ron, one more from you.
Alright, I could just do the cop out and say one of the Final Fantasy games. I'm going to not do that, though. And, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. Did we talk about Mega Man Legends at all?
No.
Alright, we're talking about it now, then.
Okay.
Mega Man Legends came out on the PlayStation late night, like 1999, 2000, I want to say.
Was this the first jump off a Nintendo console?
No, they had Mega Man X4.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to look up right now when Mega Man Legends came out. But I know it was on the PlayStation. The reason why I'm remembering this one so well is because this is not like your typical Mega Man. This is the, like an 2D side-scrolling... No, this is a 3D action adventure. And this came out, let's see. Japan had it December 18th, 1997. North America had it August 31st, 1998. But this one I remember fondly because instead of it being Mega Man, like the normal Mega Man where you have a bunch of Dr. Wily's and things like that, no, this is Mega Man being basically a treasure hunter. And most of the world's flooded, but there's certain like islands and a couple continents you can go to, like they're like mentioned in the story in passing.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up on one main island that is, let's see, where is Cadillac's Island. You crash land on Cadillac's Island after having your ship break down, and you have to help out the Cadillac's Island people that are getting invaded from various pirates because the pirates want something that you found in the previous dungeon, like in the beginning section of the game. And they're in that the main thing. The reason why I like this one is because it has similar Mega Man tropes where like just the Buster weapon, but you can power it up based on the various parts you find with and equip to it. Yeah, the range of the pistol shots and how they fire, the power of them. You also will affect how like your damage in terms of like your armor or how much damage you can resist versus how much damage you can take. The reason why it had actual pretty decent story too. You end up being that there's a series of ancient islands, like ancient like ruins underneath the island itself, and you're trying your hardest to figure out like why are these pirates so desperate to get into here. And it ends up being that there's like a gigantic power source underneath the island running a bunch of the ruins, and you have to stop the space station in orbit, and there's like a giant robot that's going to come down and crash onto the island and wreck it, and you have to stop that from happening. But it had but the reason why I liked it is because it had pretty decent voice acting. The 3D platforming action adventure was pretty solid too. There's a wide customization range that you had with Mega Man, and it was a fair bit of exploration too. It definitely gave like a very Legend of Zelda feel to the game, which is something that was like a really, really good like breath of fresh air for the Mega Man franchise, I believe.
Well, cool, because I know that there had been a glut of Mega Man titles to that point, and it might have been losing its appeal a little bit.
Yeah, they made a second one. I think it was for the PlayStation 2. I could be wrong.
I know that's one of the series that people really want a third one, and they're like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, okay, there was a Mega Man Legends 2 that came out on the PlayStation 1 as well. They were in talks about making a third one, and apparently there was even some press release about them being that they actually are going to make a third one, and then Capcom dropped the ball on it, and now that, what's his name? Oh my god, why can't I remember his name?
The creator.
Yeah, now that Keiji Inafune left.
Yep.
He's basically like, the odds of that being made are like slim to none, because Capcom has the rights for Mega Man, and they won't give it up for anything. Basically,
Mighty Number 9 Legends.
Yeah, and that'd probably be your best bet at seeing another Legends game from KG.
Yes, not Mega Man.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Alright, so I will then have the last one. And
Close this with.
What?
What are you going to close this with?
I'm going to close this with some fun craziness. I initially was introduced to this in the arcade, but it also was on the PlayStation. It made a debut on the PlayStation. This is DDR.
I was totally thinking about doing that one, and then I didn't.
Was it? Wow, DDR was on the PlayStation 1.
Yes, it was. The first DDR game for the consoles came out on the PS1.
I remember hating the dance pad because it would move. Even if you duct taped it, it just didn't respond the way that the one in the arcade did.
It came out late in the PS1 cycle, though. It came out in 2001.
Yeah, so that's about one the time the PS2 came out, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. So, but it was the third DDR game in North America, but it was the first for consoles.
All right.
Yeah, and that was when the craze was really, really big.
That's when that was when people were buying dance pads, and suddenly Nintendo went, "Damn, all those track pads we probably still have in storage somewhere."
Yeah. If only we'd still had those.
Let's repurpose them and see what happens. But I mean, we've all played DDR at this point, or know what it is. We probably have all had that horrible experience of going to like a mall arcade or a mall, and you get on the DDR pad and you
were working about gigantic sweat, get like a C rank. You watch this 5-year-old stroll up and ace the damn thing and not even break a sweat.
And that's when you wanted to punt the child off the
off the track.
I always put the logic in my head was there were people who that's what they spent their money on, and I would look at them and be like, all that money going to just that, but that's how they got so good. But then I would tell myself, well, I'm okay with not ever being that good because I don't really feel like dropping that many quarters in it.
Basically, so you're like, fine, I'll just buy a dance pad at home and play the game in the comfort of my own home without getting schooled by a 5-year-old or wasting quarters. So there, I still have my DDR pads, actually. And
gotta break those out sometime.
I have DDR. I have 2 versions of DDR for PS2, so it's actually great exercise because fuck, who wants to use a damn treadmill? That's boring. You can just go
stomp and jump a little bit.
Yeah, just go crazy listening to techno with questionable lyrics.
Oh god,
It's like
so actually, here's a little story. So when I first heard about DDR back in high school, I didn't actually know what it looked like. I just heard it was a dancing game. And I had been taking dance classes since I was like 6. So I was like, I'm going to slay at that. I'm going to be the best. The first time I saw it, I went, that's not fucking dancing. No. You're just stomping around.
Suddenly the dance purist goes, wrong!
Now, there are probably some people who know the routine so well that they could probably put flourishes and, like, jump, like, turn and stuff, and can do it facing different directions, but just standard, I'm like, what is this?
What is this horse shit?
But, it is good exercise, though. Some people...
It's great exercise.
Years ago, I think it might have been in middle school, like, invested in a couple... I don't know if it was console versions or where they actually purchased, like, arcade ones, but they added that to their physical education program, and kids loved it.
That's expensive if they bought actual arcade ones. Yeah. Even if it was, like, taking a PS1 and getting, like, a solid trackpad for it, it's still, like, $1,000.
Yeah,
probably.
That's, funny story. Now, when I got into DDR my first year of college 12 years ago, and I could go for hours. So there was a gaming society at the college I went to in New Paltz, and they would have weekly DDR nights. But they were doing that before the New Paltz Gaming Society actually formed. So this last year, the Gaming Society celebrated its 10th anniversary, and I was there. I was invited as a guest, and there was, for memory's sake, there was a DDR setup. And I got on the thing and was winded after one song. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is on light mode. Why am I gasping for air? Oh, it's because I'm fat and out of shape. And
Captain Jack would be disappointed in you.
Yeah. It's like, no boom boom dollar for me.
Songs were... I know people love the songs, and nostalgia-wise, yeah, okay, but I was never into techno stuff, so I'm like, why are these people actually listening to this, like, when they're not playing the game?
Yeah, and it's like, I tried to listen, because you can get the soundtracks, and I'm trying to listen to the music out of context, and I'm like, no.
Butterfly was the only one I could stand after that, but, like, back in high school, if I'd be driving around with some older friends and they would be playing Blow My Whistle Bitch, I'd be like, how did this...
How did this get past the censors?
This is rated T for teen? What the hell?
How did this get past the censors? What are you doing, ESRB?
Well, the original game...
said whistle and not cock.
Please,
we know what they meant.
We were no longer that innocent. Incidentally, the first game, the DDR for PS1, it was rated E. So.
What? Oh my God!
All right, little Susie. Guess what you got for Christmas?
Okay. Here's the thing. I just pulled up the soundtrack for the first game, the PS1 game, and let's see. Yep, there's Boom Boom Dollar. That's a classic.
Just the name itself makes me laugh for some reason.
Dub-a-dub. Make it better. Keep on moving. Drop the bomb. Paranoia. Oh God, that was always a hard song. Put Your Faith in Me. I remember that. But yeah, it's just like, wow, all this techno stuff, and then, but yeah, like it was a lot of fun. It was the start of the music genre really in video games. Because DDR would be a precursor to things like Guitar Hero and Rock Band. So occasionally I will break out DDR just for nostalgia's sake if I want to, look like a almost like a beluga whale wadding around on an
arrow pad.
On an arrow pad.
The next time we visit you, we can all roll around like beached whales.
Yeah, I mean, I've got two DDR pads, so yeah, we could all, be fat and sweaty together. How about that? So there we are. That's DDR, and I think with that we're going to close out part 2.
For those who were pissed that we didn't mention any of the Final Fantasies or like the actual numbered ones, we did
like
a freaking episode of 7, 8, and 9. Back in season 3?
3, yeah. So, I mean, we might touch
into that.
We might touch upon them, a little bit in the third and final. Because, I mean, let's face it, 7 was another big
console pusher.
So we'll have to acknowledge.
Also, they ported the early ones on, which was cool for somebody like me who never had
yes,
it.
Which is something that made me get into Final Fantasy, because that was the thing. The PlayStation had so many ports that finally the Final Fantasy the Final Fantasy numbering could finally be correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to play Final Fantasy 1 through 6 on the PS1.
Well, 3 never actually came out.
3 didn't come out until the DS, but yeah, I could finally play them all. But I mean, it started with 7, 8, and 9. So, but we will touch upon more of those, because I think we have enough material to do one more before we start getting into like the really obscure shit that no one's heard about, like
Too extreme,
like Driver or
Oh, I remember Driver.
Or Colony Wars, or
the Army Men series.
Or I know that there's RPG lovers out there who's probably going, why didn't you mention Breath of Fire or the Tales games?
We'll get to those.
We will get to all of those in part 3. But if you have any questions, comments, thoughts on this episode or any other episode of downloadable content, again, you can find all episodes on iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher. You can also get a hold of us, facebook.com/DLContent, on Twitter @DLContent, Tumblr, dlcpodcast.tumblr.com, and of course, email dlcontent1@gmail.com. So, our reminiscing continues. We will do a third and final episode celebrating the 20th anniversary of the PlayStation release, US release. And so, it remains for me to thank Ron, Dejah, and Tanya for being on this episode. And with that said, I am Brian. Have a good one, everybody.